Our next step will be to install Git. Now you're absolutely free to use any source control that you want to use. In fact, you can even use another one in conjunction with Git. But we're going to need to implement Git if we want to be able to deploy to Heroku. So we'll start by typing in git init, which will create a Git repository at our current directory. And next we'll create our gitignore file. For that, we'll go to WebStorm. Let's go back to our command line and see what files Git might be wanting to track. I can see that there's 4 things that Git's aware of. Obviously we want the package.json file to be under source control, and we'll also need the gitignore file to go into source control. But the other 2 directories are questionable. The .idea folder is the settings for our project, and of course the node modules directory stores the downloaded dependencies for Node. It's often debated whether or not node modules should be included in source control, with most people saying that it is a best practice to put the node modules directory under source control. In order to keep our project simple though, we're going to ignore the idea directory and the node modules directory. Now let's go back and see what Git has to say. Now there's the files we want to add, so we'll tell Git to start tracking them. And now we'll make our first commit. Now it's up to you whether or not you want to hook up your project to GitHub. We're not going to do that here. And in a normal project, you might make a lot more commits than we're going to make, since we're only going to be committing files when we need to deploy to Heroku. So don't take my behavior during this course as a recommendation on best practices when concerning source control and the frequency of check-ins. And now that we've got Git running, we're ready to move on to our next step.